episode of the Eager to Please podcast. I can't believe we're about to wrap up our first month of the show. I hope that what you've listened to so far has been impactful and meaningful to you in whatever capacity you needed it to be. And while our discussion around people pleasing isn't over, we're about to head into our next chapter called Family Matters. Before we close out this segment, though, I wanted to share some notes on a few books I discovered while on my journey of self-understanding and improvement. Not only did these books validate what I was feeling, they were able to articulate my feelings in a way that made me feel understood. So I wanted to pass along what I learned in hopes that it helps you as it has me. One of the books I read is called The Power of Saying No, written by Vanessa Patrick, PhD. In her book, she reports the need to belong has been proven to be a fundamental human motivation that, 1, leads us to make decisions based on other people's terms rather than our own. 2, causes us to hyper-focus on not disappointing others in order to avoid rejection and negative evaluation. And 3, what my 14-year-old daughter could even tell you without reading this book, is it drives us to put our own needs aside to make others happy. Dr. Patrick goes on to explain that humans are hardwired to help and conditioned to be cooperative, even going as far to say we're poised to say yes when we mean to say no. Society favors the asker because saying no violates social norms and can result in negative emotions and actions of others, bad feelings we have about ourselves, an increase in anxiety, feeling depleted and or de-energized, and the belief that saying no is a harmony buster. What I found most interesting is that she calls people out for labeling themselves, saying that labels disable. So don't label yourself. Easier said than done, right? When you call yourself a people pleaser or feel guilty for not helping, all you're doing is inviting negative self-talk that confines us to a particular role or behavior, making you out to be the victim. It's an excuse to not make any change and permission to be resentful of the people you're saying yes to. Adam Grant, a psychologist who wrote Give and Take, suggests there's a big difference between people pleasing and helping them. Being a giver is not about saying yes to all the people all the time, to all the requests. It's about saying yes to some of the people, some of the time, to some of the requests. It's essential that we learn to honor the need to be authentic to ourselves and only say yes to things that don't push us over the edge of our current capacity. Because if we don't learn to be authentic to ourselves, we end up falling into one of two buckets. The victim, who has the mentality that others made me do this, or the martyr, who thinks, I always have to do this because no one else will. The dark side of being a victim or martyr is that we're not living our best lives, which leads to being overwhelmed or constantly busy, feelings of guilt, anxiety, frustration, anger, blame, resentment, and or feeling taken advantage of, often referred to as being a doormat. Ever wonder why it's harder to say no to acquaintances than to family or complete strangers? That's because people-pleasing is much, much more than being nice to people. So, my fellow eager pleasers, I leave you with this parting gift. The wisdom of knowing you have the power within you to set healthy boundaries, to give yourself permission to reject the things that distract you from your purpose. The gift of no allows you to change your reluctant yeses to absolute yeses, not because you want a positive reaction out of someone, but because you know it feels 100% right. Protect your time and energy so you can keep showing up every day for you and your loved ones. Thanks for joining me on this week's podcast. We'll see you next week.